We got to talk about Gonzaga. We got to talk about Arkansas. I thought that was, there's been talk about the officiating. We can get into that in a little bit if we need to, but I thought that was a really, really impressive performance from Eric Musselman, from his game planning, from what they did to kind of slow down Drew Timme, what they did to try to slow down Andrew Nembhard. And of course, it helped that they got Chet Holmgren out of there in about 23 minutes with the 5 fouls. Yeah. Mike, what was your takeaway from that game, that performance, and this Arkansas team?
Yeah, it's super impressive. I mean, obviously they had a really strong game plan, and they were unrelenting for 44 minutes. I mean, I don't know if I remember Gonzaga getting 5 easy shots all game. They got nothing in transition. Everything was challenged at the rim. Obviously Nembhard never really got going, and they really kept the 2 bigs off balance. The foul trouble certainly was a factor with Timme and Chet, but obviously this game at this level is about guard play, and Gonzaga did not get very good guard play today. Note, even though he doesn't mind emptying his clip to give his team a chance. And
no, he does not.
But Frank's obviously coached against him. He knows that Musselman's as good of in game, in terms of preparation and having this team locked in as anybody. And obviously they executed a tremendous game plan and they're moving on.
That's the quote of the night right there. Doesn't mind emptying his clip. I like that one with JD Note. So true. So true.
Frank, I want to ask you about Jalen Williams. I think he's one of the highest IQ players in college basketball on the defensive end of the floor. He's always in the right spot. He's not this crazy athlete, but he knows where he needs to be. He's smart on the offensive end. It feels like he's the piece that makes everything else work on this Arkansas team. Am I right there? Am I barking up the right tree?
Absolutely. They've got a bunch of 6'5", 6'6" perimeter defenders that are all long-armed and switch and just contest hard. And then he is he's like, everyone talks about Chet Holmgren because he's such a shot blocker. Williams might not be a shot blocker like him, but he doesn't give you the rim. He's a 6'10" guy that you don't get the rim when you go at the basket. He's always in the way, and he's a position defender, not a steal shot blocker defender. And then offensively, they asked me, I thought Gonzaga would win the game. That's what I thought. I thought Timme would create a problem for them. But like Mike said, that Arkansas defense just swallowed up Nembhard and Bolton. And if your guards don't play well, it's hard to win at any time. But at this time of year, you got no chance. And then offensively, they play 5 out. And now Williams, they run their half-court offense through Williams. Everything goes through him. It's not Note. It's not the point guard. It's not – everything goes through him. And when Trey Wade's making threes like he did today, they become impossible because now Williams drives your center from the top of the key where they play him from. They play him from the top of the key and the elbows, and he plays off the bounce. And if you get it back, he can make that shot. So it's they're a difficult matchup for anybody because of how interchangeable and similar. Everyone talks about small ball, like I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to be one of those old farts. Denny Crum started small ball. The McCray brothers from Mike's neighborhood. They were 6'8", but they were guards. Why? He played Wiley Brown or something like, not Wiley. I can't remember his name. That was his center, who was a 6'7" guy. And then they, Dr. Darrell Griffith and Poncho Wright or whatever. And they were all 6'5", and they'd switch every screen.
And you're old, Frank. You're old. You know that?
What's that?
You're old.
I'm old. I've become. I am the new version of the old crusty bastard. I'm the new one coming through. All those other guys have gone. I'm the new one. But think about that. Like everyone talks about small ball now. That's what Denny Crum did back in 1981. And that's this Arkansas team reminds me a lot of how those Louisville teams used to play back then.
Hey, Aldis Tony was huge on the glass for them as well, man.
Yeah.
Both defensively and offense. Obviously, his block to seal it was impressive, but he had a couple offensive rebounds in a one possession game that really gave him a chance to run some clock, get some separation, make Gonzaga foul, and little things. But he was a master of the little things tonight.
Well,
Yeah,
I thought, like you said, Mike, I thought one of the things that you have to do with Gonzaga is control their guards, right, and their wings. And if you can do that, you put so much pressure. And Chet was out of the game, so you put so much pressure on Drew Timme. And let's face it, we've seen it before. We've seen that Timmy's he's going to keep going at you. We know that, but length and athleticism clearly bothers him. It makes life difficult. And he could get through one dude, and then somebody else is waiting for him at the rim. And that's just too much. There was too much on Drew Timme tonight because, again, the Nembhard struggled. We saw that. Strother, didn't really come to play. Bolton wasn't great. And the biggest thing that I feel like now, if you ask Mark Few, you wonder, would he regret not playing Hickman and Salas more in the WCC when he had a chance to do it against some teams, again, when he could have.
I don't know how much of a difference it would have made in this specific matchup, because to me,
Salas is super athletic. Like that's where I think they were missing a guy.
To me, this was about Arkansas not letting them get out in transition and then not guarding Timme outside of about 8 feet so they could just clog up the paint and not give you any kind of, like, they ate up those guards. So maybe it would have been, Hickman and Salas could have been the guys to get that first kind of paint touch and the first dribble penetration to create a closeout for someone. But that, to me, this was just about if Gonzaga can't score in transition, it really limits what they are offensively.
Well, and they didn't shoot it, from three. They had done a hell of a job all year shooting it, and that was the one thing we were worried about going into the season. Now, part of that was Arkansas. I thought they got out in the perimeter shooters, but again, part of it was probably this isn't a great shooting team. Chet was their best perimeter shooter, and he was on the bench half the game.
I'm just telling you, you don't have – people have no idea watching from the stands or on TV on how long – like we talked about Houston being physical because of the rebounding. Arkansas is really physical defensively. They're long, they're old, they're athletic, and they guard you out there on the perimeter. It's really hard to get open looks on the perimeter against Arkansas.
Let me ask you guys this. Jeff, you mentioned that Chet Holmgren was on the bench. And look, guys that are still coaching, you can politely say no comment on this one. But Goodman, the officiating in this game, it feels like it's been a storyline throughout the tournament, which is really frustrating. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't talk about this towards closer to the end of the show, because to me, this win was about Arkansas having a better game plan and out executing Gonzaga. But you can't ignore the fact there was that out of bounds call that the officials missed. There was a trip that they missed. Both of those missed calls led to buckets for Arkansas. And the fouls on Chet, I thought that he probably had 3 actual fouls instead of 5 for fouling out. It's been consistent throughout the tournament. We saw it with North Carolina, their comeback, Baylor's comeback against them. I think North Carolina got called for 13 straight fouls in that game. Is it a problem, and is it something that we can fix, or is it just what it is in college basketball?
It's been a problem. It's not like this is anything new. We say this every year. We forget about it, and we say, well, yeah, it's worse this year than it ever. No, I don't think it is. I think it's been pretty consistent. The only thing I would say is these guys are tired at the end of the year when they should be fresh. And I've said it, and I'll say it over and over, and nothing will ever be done. But what they need to do is have one universal assigner that doesn't send these guys all over the country, right? You don't send them to LA and back to Omaha and then back to LA and then to South Carolina. Like, come on, what are we doing here? Keep them in a region for a week. You want to pull them out of that region at some point, keep them in that other region for a week. Let them drive 2 games. Let them not have to get on flights, and don't let them. I know you, again, I get it, because they're not going to pay for benefits and make them full-time employees. but you got to try to cap. You can't be working 21 straight days or 21 and 22. They're going to be tired at the end of the year when we need them to be at their best, and they're not.
I'd agree on that. I think we get diminishing returns because of those guys. You know, they're working 5-6 days a week. You know, a lot of them are older guys, right?
And a lot of them, that's their side gig too, right? Like this isn't just their full-time job. Some they have other jobs too.
And so I mean, they're humans. They make mistakes, and so they're going to miss calls. It's the nature of it, right? As coaches, we make bad calls ourselves. Kids miss shots, turn the ball over. But unlike them, we got to go answer questions from guys like you guys a lot and say why.
They don't.
Right? And for them, they go home and, you know, even if they get it wrong, they may say they got it wrong, but the next night they're officiating somewhere else. So there's no real accountability until this time of year, right? When you're trying to advance in the tournament. But it's a pretty good gig, man, for guys who don't have to answer questions about why they did something.
That's, you know,
Frank's quiet. Why is Frank so quiet over? You don't have a job right now, Frank. Come on, bring it.
He's a big fan of the officials.
Here's one thing that I think is really messed up is they're asked to officiate the game a certain way to make the NCAA tournament, and then they get in the NCAA tournament and they officiate the game completely different, and that creates a problem. That because
how would you change it? What would you? And I know we don't have a lot of time. You tell me, Rob, what we got left right now. But what is the way to fix this problem?
Here, I'm gonna give you an example. Okay. If you ask any official that works multiple leagues, he'll tell you that the SEC is by far the most athletic league in the country. So now you take an official that's been working nothing but Big Ten games, which Big Ten officials pretty much work Big Ten games. And the Big Ten is an unbelievably well-coached league, but the athleticism is not the same. Same thing with Gonzaga. They don't play in a conference that presents what Houston brings to the table. And now you put a Pac-12 official in a Houston game, they're going to call some fouls on the Houston players because they've never officiated that physicality. And if you take an official that's done Houston 5 times, and now he officiates the Gonzaga game, the Gonzaga people are not used to those guys being allowed to play with that physicality. So I don't know how you fix it other than making officials work every league. That's why I'm with you. I think it should be a universal deal. And what I wouldn't do is let officials go from California to Nebraska on 2 days for 2 games over a 3-day period.
Makes no sense.
I'd make a group of guys work the West Coast for a week and then send them to the Midwest and then to the South and the Northeast and just keep moving guys around.
And then when they leave the region, they get 2 days off in between.
And here's the other problem in the NCAA tournament. You got me started on referees. Now you got to deal with me. Now, here's the other problem. So you take in the NCAA tournament, you take an SEC guy that's seen athleticism, and you take a Big Ten guy that officiates a league where they set 1 million screens. And then you take a West Coast Conference guy that's not used to the size and athleticism that these 2 leagues present. You put those 3 guys in a game, they've never worked together. They don't have that flow to call the game consistently. So now, Jeff, you're the referee on the baseline on my side of the floor. You're calling some things that the guy on the other baseline doesn't call. And you can say it all evens out. No, it don't. If you're always on my baseline. And it mess, it just that's what I think complicates the NCAA tournament.
I agree. Listen, we gotta head to a break here in a second. When we come back, we're going to talk Villanova, we're going to talk Michigan, and why Colin Gillespie is the best closer in college basketball.
Clear for 90.
One thing that was mentioned to me by a WCC coach is that Gonzaga, when they get in the tournament, is not used to not getting every single call. He basically said, let me find the text. It was they only get the best possible whistle. in the
True.
WCC,
True.
the best possible whistle. So they get into the NCAA tournament. You got all these guys that are physical and going to get up in them, and all of a sudden they're not getting every single call. You don't have Timmy getting 20 free throws a night. Changes the way that you can do some things.